Howard Stern discusses Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce at SNL. He talks about Israel, Keith Richards, and Ronnie's wedding, all on October 16th. Hey, it's your YouTube friend Brad, and it's time for a Howard Stern recap from October 16th, 2023. Figured with the Ronnie wedding happening, maybe it would be interesting to hear what was going on at the wedding and see what Howard had to say about it. Of course, check my description as I'm selling shirts with quotes from the show and little fun things that people might enjoy, 80s lyrics, 90s lyrics, and quotes from the show. And also subscribe and like and get notifications turned on. So I will do these as much as I find that there's interesting stuff to talk about. It seemed like there'd be a lot of interest in this as Howard was off last week and he interviewed Keith Richards, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And it coincides obviously with Ronnie's wedding, which was over the weekend, and many staffers and former staffers were there. And I am hoping on my show here to get one of those former staffers on here to talk about the wedding and get his take of what he saw, because there was a lot of folks out there that Howard doesn't want to talk to, like Scott the engineer was out there and Doug Goodstein was out there, people that he fired pretty quickly and then has nothing to do with. So it was pretty interesting to see some of those old faces and a lot of faces that have been on this program. And again, hopefully we will be speaking with someone who was out there and they'll give their take on this channel. So hopefully you enjoy the channel. And if you haven't been here before, check it out. But I do recaps if I hear something interesting. And again, today I just went ahead and listened to see if there was anything interesting. So let's get to the show. Howard starts off by saying he doesn't want to be there today. It starts off the show like that. He said he had a minor surgery during the break. It was a bladder issue, a kidney stone type of thing. It had him wiped out, blood coming out of his ween. And he went on for a bit about that. And then he was talking about the Israel conflict, and it got him all depressed. He says, I can't believe it, because he said when Trump was in office, Jared Kushner was sent over there to solve the whole problem, and he came back and said the problem was solved. So he doesn't know why this is happening. This was Howard's political talk of the morning. Jared Kushner promised that it was basically over and said they negotiated something, and so it's all cool. But, of course, now that is not happening. This led to him talking about the bedbug epidemic in France. It's worse than anything that's ever occurred in the country, and he's actually glad now his wife is not going to France. She was going to go, but now with a few folks canceling, she is no longer going, and that makes Howard happy because he didn't want the bedbug thing to happen with him or her, so there was a bunch of that. Howard then talked about Ronnie's wedding. He said he'll get to that in a minute, but he's angry because he's heard all the stories, and quite frankly, there's nothing good for the radio. So he's very pissed that nothing will be able to program his program today because there wasn't any great stories or any crazy things happening. He just said the wedding was beautiful. Nothing weird happened, but in terms, quote, in terms of a radio show, it's a total bust, unquote. He said there's a beautiful picture of Ronnie and Stephanie kissing with Elvis hanging out in the background. He said, I'll tell you about that in a moment, but he says, I have a crazy story to tell you about Beth. He's like, I have this EpiPen and I carry it everywhere because if you have allergies, your throat can close up and you can die. So he keeps this EpiPen and he's never had to use it. So then he talked about how Beth, he carries it for Beth because she gets reactions and it's getting worse and she got stung by a bee. And so now Howard had to pull out the EpiPen, and we were now talking a lot about Beth and the EpiPen, and this went on for a long time. So as he's talking about this, Howard kind of looked around and said he heard somebody moving around, and he said, quote, Beth, is this you? Unquote. Do you want to come on and talk about this? Unquote. And Beth said, do you want me to come on? As if this wasn't planned. So we get lots of Beth talk here. Basically nothing really to report back on there unless you enjoy hearing Howard and Beth just talk. I don't find it interesting. So we'll move on. Howard talked about that nothing happened at the wedding. No good stories. He was pissed about it. There was talk about Mehmet having sex with his wife in the bathroom. That didn't happen. Benji was mentioned, so if you've listened to this show, you've heard that maybe Benji was no longer part of the show, but they did mention Benji, so I would assume that's no longer true, that he is part of the show, but he just didn't show up. He just sent Ronnie a message, said, I can't make it, didn't give any excuse. But Howard said everybody was on their best behavior. JD did get very drunk and then passed out, and there was a lot of talk about JD's drunkenness. JD did enjoy the pool, so there's a bunch of hot waitresses. We got Chris Wilding in there talking about how he's trying to meet guys and how he's attracted to Will. They said Ronnie's vows were way too normal and nice. So they'll have Ronnie read those in a little bit. So then we had a bunch of stories of what everyone was wearing. Not much funny there. Then they talked about how everyone danced. There was a bunch of people making fun of everybody dancing. Really a bunch of different voices at this point coming through the show. And I don't know who these people are. I don't listen as much as some people maybe do. But I guess Wilding and Mehmet and Blit, and I know obviously JD and Richard and Gary, but there was a lot of voices here, a lot of the whack pack, I guess, or whatever we're calling these people now. It's not as funny, when I was a fan, this is a Brad comment, Stuttering John and KC and then Scott the Engineer and Artie and even Grillo, it was just way more fun. Now we got all these kind of young kids that come in and just aren't funny. I like Nowicki, seems like a good dude, but he just does impressions. And anyway, we continued with Ronnie. He was on. He sounded very tired. He lost his voice. He talked about there was no wedding night sex. He said his wife was too tired. Ronnie was ready to go. Ronnie said they had not opened any gifts, but he did mention that Lonnie from Rick's, so he said Scores and then went into Rick's, sent an over-the-top check. So he talked about that, and there was talk about Howard having to maybe have to beat this check. Someone said was it funny money, which is a kind of a funny comment. But Howard said he sent something in the mail, you should see it, and Ronnie said he hadn't seen it. They talked about Bubba being in his own shirt that said Bubba, and then Bubba and Nowicki were on tape doing the same voice as Nowicki does a Bubba impression. And then about 2 hours in, they took a break, so a lot of wedding talk, but the funny part here is Howard's just not happy that there wasn't anything entertaining to bring back to the show. We came back after that with the break, and they talked about the vows. Jason did not like the vows. Howard had Ronnie read them on the air, and Howard liked them. He said there's nothing wrong there. There is a point where Ronnie compares his love to a building, which Jason did not like, and Howard kind of defended him. Howard wraps up by saying, unfortunately, nothing really happened at the wedding. He moved on to how pissed off he is about how well Ozempic works, because he says Bubba looks really good. He's on it. Kelly Clarkson was on Jimmy Fallon, and she looks skinny, and so he's mad about that. He says that it takes him so much work to be skinny, and these people are just taking a pill. Howard brought up some deaths over the time that he was off. Rudolph Isley of the Isley Brothers, 84, he passed, but they played a bunch of songs. Fight the Power was a theme that Howard enjoyed back in his days in Roosevelt. He played Shout and It's Your Thing, some great Isley Brothers songs. He played a prank call to C-SPAN from a Howard fan. Howard says he really enjoys these. He doesn't know who's doing them, but he enjoys that people are still calling C-SPAN. Moved on to Suzanne Summers' death. He enjoyed her a bunch, enjoyed when she would come on with her husband. He talked about how bad that decision was to leave Three's Company and her Thigh Master. But she did come on a bunch, and Howard was sad about this. This brought in John Hine talking about Suzanne Summers and then playing some clips of his audiobook, Jump the Shark. Some clips from his Gilligan's Island section of that. And John Hine talked about the wedding a bit, and this led to some gambling stories. John Hine won $800 in blackjack and $1,200 in craps. Seems like he knows what he's doing. He has a system. Talked about John Hine and his roulette fortune. He talks about picking the number 17. He says it hits a lot, and it hit 3 different times while Sal was playing, so he was happy to get that advice. I had never heard this, by the way. 17 is the number to play, but now I'm going to try it myself. Got some more JD stories out in Vegas, just him looking at the Sphere and other things that he did. Howard moved on to talk about Taylor Swift being on SNL and Travis Kelce also showing up there as well. So Howard seems to think that this is for real. And that was it. Did a long bunch of goofy stuff on the Taylor Swift and Kelce relationship. Then we had some Keith Richards feedback as musicians were calling to Howard to tell him how they've never heard him like this before. Everyone loved, believe it or not, everyone loved the Keith Richards interview. Even fans said they were just so excited that he came on out of the blue and did this interview. So this is the feedback that he gets, which is hilarious to me. He only reads the good stuff. And then we had a call from Angry Alice calling about Ralph. She said, just come out of the closet already. It's time. And that was that. So that was the show. Some entertaining stuff, but once again, the Ronnie show continues. Although it wasn't a lot of Ronnie today. It was more of just the whack pack of his staff coming in to talk about what went on at Ronnie's wedding. So we'll try to get you some more recaps this week if there's anything interesting. Didn't hear any guest coming in that would be that interesting, but we'll see. Again, check out my description as I have a shirt shop. You can go in there and check these out. Let me know if you want a video version of this or if you're okay with me just throwing some audio out there. Again, I saw that Mark's Friggin no longer does a recap, so I'll try to give you some recaps as quickly as I can, and you can come to YouTube and check out what you missed on the show if you don't have Sirius, and what you're not missing, because I would say if you used to be a fan and you want to hear, I don't think there's much to hear. But I thank you for coming by here. I appreciate people wanting to know, and again, we'll be doing these more often, and again, hopefully an interview with a former member of the staff who was out at Ronnie's wedding. He told me he'll give me some stories from that, so looking forward to hopefully getting that up here soon. Talk to you soon. We'll see you next time.